All right, welcome everyone. Welcome, welcome. I see we got a little bit of a small group tonight, and that's good. So should be free to ask as many questions as you like. So if you can give me a quick, type in a quick yes in your chat box if you can hear me okay, that would be great, and we can get started. Thank you, Deborah. Wonderful. And tonight we're going to talk about some of the usual stuff, but also what's happening tomorrow morning, because we have a couple of important announcements tomorrow morning. That we're going to go over that could have a significant move in the market tomorrow. So we'll talk about why that is and what they are. Thank you, James. Lavender, thank you, thank you. All righty. So as usual, we got to go through the disclaimers. So take a minute or two and read through these disclaimers, and we'll start up again here in a couple minutes. Welcome, George. Right now, we're just reading through the disclaimers. Welcome, Steve. All righty, we'll switch to the next page here. Go ahead and keep reading through that. All righty. You all should have had enough time to read through the disclaimers. Here we go. All right. The wonderful world of foreign exchange. The currency market, otherwise known as FX, is the market where one currency is traded for another. It's the largest currency, it's the largest market on the planet by far. Over $4 trillion per day flows through the currency market. It's just huge, which is great because it makes it the most liquid financial market in the world. Now, what do I mean by liquid? That means that there's lots and lots of trading opportunities throughout the day. And that's great because throughout the day means 24 hours a day. Okay? So the Forex market is open 24 hours a day, basically 5.5 days a week. The only time it's closed is from Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time to Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time when it opens back up again. So it's very flexible, especially for people who have full-time jobs or have busy lives. You can trade before you go to work, after you get home from work. If you want to get up at midnight and trade then, there's lots of opportunities to trade throughout the day, and that's really cool. It's not like the market closes every day like the stock market. So very, very, very flexible. Also, there's very little to no inside information. Seems like every year we hear about a scandal on Wall Street about somebody, inside information or cooking the books, what have you. You can't really do that in Forex because it's global, it's huge, and the information comes out to everyone at the same time. For example, exchange rate fluctuations, the value of the currencies, are usually caused by monetary flows, as well as anticipations on global macroeconomic conditions. So let's talk about that. You know, oftentimes we get people asking, hey, well, how much can I make trading Forex? And of course, we're here to make money trading Forex. That's our end goal. But can we promise that? Absolutely not. We can't promise that you would ever make one dime trading Forex. First of all, that's illegal. And second of all, it's unethical. Now, of course, that is our goal. And we believe our program can help you achieve that goal. But we can't promise that. You have to fully disclose the risk because those risks involved in trading, which is why we go through those two disclaimers there at the beginning of every webinar. But what we can guarantee is that your knowledge level of what's happening on macro and microeconomic conditions all over the world will explode to a great degree. And that's crucially important to us, not just as a trader. You need to have the right information as a trader and understand this stuff, but also just as a citizen. Because all of these things happening on a daily basis affect you every single day. They have a direct effect on your wallet, your purse, every single day, whether you understand them or not. And that's a big reason why, according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, you can go to their website and look it up. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, go there, verify what I'm saying for yourself. 95.7% of Americans, 95.7, let's just call it 96%, retire dependent on family, charity, or the government. Very scary fact. And in my opinion, a big part of that is that people just don't know about monetary policy, finances, budgets, economy, how they all work together. None of that. Financial literacy is not really taught in our schools. And it's not really taught around the family dinner table either for most families. People don't talk about it. It's an uncomfortable topic for most people. So that's a big reason why we do what we do. We want to help people get to that 4% who can have their own assets and retire on their own steam, not family or charity or the government. So that's a big part of our mission in life for our company, is to help people along that way, giving them information that's going to make a difference in their lives, not just trading, but in their lives as consumers and citizens. Crucially important. Now, what we're going to talk about later on, I alluded to earlier in the webinar, is that tomorrow morning we have two significant pieces of news being released that's going to affect our US dollar. And we'll talk about what they are and why they're important. So, but they're released at the exact same time that everybody else can see it. So at least in theory, everyone in the world receives the same news at the same time. And what you do with that news, how you understand it, how you interpret it, can help you not only plan, but execute your trades. It gives you a great advantage. So as I said, operates 24 hours a day, Sunday through Friday, and there's no fixed location. There's no one foreign exchange market like the New York Stock Exchange you can go to physically. It happens between individuals and brokers, brokers with banks, and banks with banks. All right, let's keep it going here. And by the way, we have a little bit of a small crowd tonight, so feel free to type in any questions you may have. Now, in that 24-hour period, there are 4 distinct sessions: the London session, the New York session, the Sydney session, and the Tokyo session. And then it rolls back around to London. And you see London overlaps New York overlaps Sydney, Sydney overlaps Tokyo, and back around. And it's important to know what session you're in, because trading volumes do dip and rise throughout the day. So there's different times of day when the market is busier, more opportunity to trade than others. There's usually always an opportunity to trade throughout the day, but sometimes they're busier than others. For example, when one session is overlapping another, when London overlaps New York, or Sydney overlaps Tokyo, or Tokyo overlaps London, busy times. Or the opening and closing hour of each individual session tends to be very busy also. So it's good to know, hey, what time is it where I am locally? What's my local time? And how to relate it to what session you're in. These are some of the things we teach you in our private coaching sessions. Now, currencies always trade in pairs. We're never trading just one currency, gang. You need to make sure you understand that. Currencies trade in pairs. For example, the Great British Pound versus the US dollar, or the Euro versus the US dollar, or the Canadian dollar versus the Swiss franc, or the Japanese yen, right? So you need to understand that currencies always trade in pairs. Very important. Now, how do you determine the value? Well, it's very simple. When you have a currency pair, let's say the Great British Pound versus the US dollar. Well, the Great British Pound is listed first in that currency pair. And that's the first currency listed in the pair is what's known as the base currency, BASE, the base currency right here. Oop, we got somebody back on. Let me get you on mute there again, George. There you go. So the base currency is the first currency. The second currency is called the quote currency. And the exchange rate, the exchange rate between those two currencies tells you how much of the quote currency it takes to equal one of the base. I'll show you that a little bit more here in a few slides. Well, here it is actually. So for example, here we have the Australian dollar versus the US dollar currency pair, the AUD-USD. And then we have the price down here, which is the same as the exchange rate. So what this is saying, it takes basically 0.9952 US dollars to equal 1 Australian dollar. So in this one, the base is the Australian dollar and the quote is the US dollar. And it's basically saying that it takes 99 cents US to equal 1 Australian dollar. So in that scenario, the US dollar is slightly stronger than the Australian dollar because it only takes 99 cents US to equal 1 Australian dollar. Coming over here to the US dollar Japanese yen. Now the dollar has flipped places here and now it's listed first. So that's the base currency. And the base currency is always equal to 1 unit of that currency. So this price down here is telling me it takes 82.18 yen to equal 1 US dollar. So the US dollar is much stronger than the Japanese yen right now. Actually, the current price on that is closer to about 120 yen for every 1 US dollar. So Japan's economy is really kind of struggling right now. Now, you see the word pips here, PIP. Very important. PIP stands for price interest point, and it represents the smallest increment of movement of these price actions down here. Now, why is that important? Because in Forex trading, you are risking certain dollar amounts per 1 pip of movement. So you can risk 10 cents for every 1 pip of movement, or $1 for every 1 pip of movement, $10, $50, whatever amount you can per your account balance. So you have to know how to calculate the pips. So we start counting from the 5th digit of price. So for example, in the Aussie USD pair, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we would start counting from the number 2. So if that price increased by 5 pips, it would go from 0.9952 to 0.9957. And that's how you calculate pips. Okay? If it went up by 10 pips, it would go to 0.9962. And these are things we go into in extreme detail to make sure our students really understand. Don't worry if you don't get it all right now. I know this could be new to some of you people on this call, so don't worry about it if we don't understand it right now. These are things we go into detail to make sure our students understand exactly how to count the pips and how it relates to how much you're risking when you're trading. Okay? Same thing with the yen pairs. We have the US dollar versus the Japanese yen. And the price is 0.8218, but it's still the 5th digit of price, even though the decimal point's in a different place than it was in the Aussie-US pair. It's always the 5th digit of the price is where we start counting the pips from. Very important. And please, gang, if you have any questions, if you don't understand something, feel free to type them into your chat box there. Very important. We don't want you going away without getting your questions answered. All right, now, we talked about how there's news just about every single day that can have a significant impact on the market. And that's absolutely true. Absolutely true. I'm going to show you a trade we did this morning in a group session. And yes, not only do we do the private sessions, we do group sessions with our students where they can watch the coach trade live, trade a real account, not a fake account, their real account with real money at stake. They can watch the coaches trading live. So they're looking over the shoulder of an experienced trader, placing trades live in the market, and they can either copy the trades themselves or they can just watch and learn. It's a great way to learn because trading is a learn by doing business. And it is a business. You have to approach it as such. It's not some get rich quick scheme. It's not some, get rich overnight. That's nonsense. Trading is hard work, it's discipline, it's study, it's being held accountable, it's learning, it's practicing. If trading was easy, the whole world would do it because it's a wonderful way to make part-time money or even full-time money if you can become good enough. And that's our goal for every single one of our students. All right. Now, so here we are back on our Australian dollar, US dollar currency pair. Now, if the Australian dollar strengthens, let's say they got good news in their economy. Let's say their unemployment rate dropped. Well, that would be good news for the Australian economy, and by default, good news for the Australian dollar. So if the Australian dollar is getting stronger, George, I'm not sure why your microphone keeps coming on, but I'm going to keep you on mute there, buddy, okay? All right. So if the Australian dollar strengthens, that means the US dollar is going to get weaker. If that happens, we'll see this price, this 0.9952, go up because now it takes more US money to equal 1 Australian dollar. And vice versa, if the Australian dollar got bad news to their economy, let's say unemployment rate went up, well, that's bad for the for the Australian dollar. And we'll see the US dollar get weaker and the US dollar will strengthen against it. And that price will decrease because now it's taking less US dollars to equal 1 Australian dollar. Okay, so where do we go to find all this news? What happens with this? Well, there's a wonderful, wonderful website you should all be familiar with called FOREX Factory. And I'll type it in here. James, when can you get into one of the live trading events? James is actually one of our private clients right now. And James, we probably have about 3 or 4 more sessions before we get you trading your demo account. And we'll get you through all the remaining homework you have, and we can get you into some of those group trading events, okay? All right. Where was I? Oh, yeah, FOREX Factory. There it is in your chat box there. You have a link to it there. And this site is amazing. It brings all the important economic indicators, speeches, statistics from all over the world, and they consolidate them here. They tell us exactly when it's going to happen, the time of day. They tell us what currency it's going to be affecting. They tell us if it's going to be a high impact event or a low impact event or a medium impact event. They tell us exactly what the event is. They tell us in detail about that statistic or that event. And then they give us the forecasted number, the previous time that statistic was released, what it was then, and then at the allotted time, they give you the actual number, what it was. So you see here this morning at 5:30 a.m. Pacific time, where I was doing a group session for our students all over the country. And we had some high impact news on the Canadian dollar and the US dollar. So on the trade balance on the US dollar, we'll start there. The forecast was for a negative $41.3 billion deficit on our trade balance. Well, at 5:30 a.m., the actual number popped in here and it was only negative $35.4 billion. So it wasn't as bad as they expected, which is why that number's in green, which meant that that was good news for the US dollar. Now also at 5:30 a.m., they released the unemployment claims for last month for the US, for the whole US. And they were expecting to see 286,000 claims, but the actual number was 268,000. So they had less claims than they were expecting. So that was in green. So the US got a double dose of good news this morning. And the Canadian also got good news because their trade balance wasn't as bad as they were expecting. They were expecting a negative 2.0 billion, came in at negative 1.0 billion. So, why is that important? What does that mean? Well, I come up here and hopefully you'll be able to see this chart better. If I go to the Great British Pound US dollar chart here, and I'll show you it. All right. So this morning, we were having a group session trading live. And if you follow my mouse here, see this big, huge spike down here, right here? It's a big spike down on that dark blue candle there. That's exactly when that news came out on the trade balance and the unemployment rate. So this dropped the price about 30 pips in a matter of just a minute or two, a couple of minutes. And we were able to take advantage of that big move down that news created. And we did that live in a group session where the trades and the profit targets are called out before the trade happens, which is important because anybody can call it afterwards, right? We don't do that. We call it out before the news happens so our students have the opportunity to trade along with us and watch the trade live as it happens, not looking back after it like so many other companies do. No, we call our trades before, allow the students time to participate in trading with us, and then we trade. You understand? Very important. So that move there was beautiful, gave us a nice trade this morning, and we hit our profit target, and we were off to the next trade. Now, some of you were with me here on Tuesday's webinar, where I called out a trade on the Australian dollar. So let's go to that chart. This is a trade I actually called out live in the webinar. And that was on, what, today's the 2nd, so that was on the March 30th here. And we called out a trade just about in this area here to sell the Australian dollar, US dollar. And sure enough, it went down very nicely for us. If you remember that, if you were on Tuesday, that was a trade I did live in this webinar. And I called out the number, and you watched me trade it live, and it turned out to be a very, very good trade for us. It was an excellent trade. So I gave a small taste of what we do almost every single day. Almost every single day we have a live trading session with our students, our more advanced students who are ready to trade. Okay, because this is a real course. You have homework, you have chapters you have to read and study, you are held accountable. You will start trading on a demo account where you have a live data feed in the live market, but you'll have fake money, basically a monopoly money to trade with. But you are encouraged to treat that as if it were a real account because everything else about it is real, the data feed and the market and the charts and everything else. And that's how we build you into a real trader. And we track your stats. We will know how many winning trades you have, how many losing trades you have, how many pips you made, how many pips you lost, what your drawdown was, what is your winning percentage, all of those things. You will know those and we will analyze those. And that's the only way to make sure we build you into the proper trader. Now hear me clearly. There's no system out there that's 100% right all the time. If there was, I would have found it by now. It doesn't exist. And you see so many people out there saying, oh yes, our system never loses, never losing trade. Well, that's nonsense. It's nonsense. Our goal is to get our traders to that 75 to 85% win ratio. If you can get there consistently and sustain that level of trading, you can reach some very, very attractive goals trading-wise financially. If you can do that, and that's our goal, and you're coachable, you're willing to work hard and study and trade and practice, it's a realistic goal that you can get to. And with proper take profits and proper capital management, it's a realistic goal to have some really, life-changing money, whether it's part-time or full-time money. Now, is it easy? Absolutely not. No, it is not. Like I said, if trading was easy, the whole world would do it because it's a great way to make a living. But is it attainable? If you're willing to put the time in and work and train and study and learn, absolutely it's attainable. Because we're not going for some pie-in-the-sky crazy amount of pips per day. If you can make 20 pips per day and build your account up, if you're risking $10 per pip and you average 20 pips per day, well, at the end of the average month, that's an extra $4,000 per month you could be making. Now that's more than most people make in a year in this country of ours. So, is that realistic? Is that attainable? Sure. Will it happen overnight? Absolutely not. So, these are the goals that you can do, that you can build to, if you can apply yourself and work hard and do these things. All righty. Now, I mentioned tomorrow that we have some important news coming out. And tomorrow, Friday morning, once again, it's early morning, we have the non-farm employment and the unemployment rate. Now you see, the forecasted numbers are already in here. They're expecting the non-farm employment change to be 247,000, which is actually less than the last time it was released a month ago, which was 295,000. The unemployment rate they expect to be right around 5.5%. Now tomorrow morning at 5:30, in this actual column here, the actual numbers will pop in here and we'll be able to see if it fell short, met, or exceeded the forecast. And we'll be able to, James, how does 4,000 relate to taxes? Buddy, I'm not a CPA. I wouldn't even hazard a guess to tell you about that. But obviously, you're going to have to pay money on taxes on whatever you earn through your broker. And the broker will help you with that in terms of tracking the amount of money that you spent. But other than that, that's a question for a CPA, buddy. All righty. So the actual numbers will pop in here tomorrow morning, and we'll be able to see, and we can use this to plan and execute our trades. Now, again, I have no prior knowledge as to if this numbers are going to be good or bad for the US dollar, but to us, it doesn't matter, because as a trader, all we need is a trend, either up or down. So we can trade depending on what the news is happening, and what we teach our students are strategies to place trades that can take advantage of the news no matter which way it goes. So that's important. Very, very important. But this focuses you in, tongue-tied there. This gives you focus as to which currency pairs to be watching, what time, what the forecast, what the actual is. It's a fantastic website. Even if you don't join us, you should be checking this website every single day to understand what's going on in the world, because you will gain a deep and broad understanding of everything that's happening on an economic basis, not just domestically, but internationally as well. All right. So why are these two so important? Why is non-farm and unemployment rate so important? All right. So non-farm payroll. You hear this listed on the news all the time. Okay. If you're watching financial news, or even your local news, they mention NFP, non-farm payroll. Now you know what that is. Well, what does it mean? Well, it's to change the number of employed people during the previous month, excluding the farming industry. So they don't include the farming industry because it can be seasonal and it can be very volatile based on that alone. Now, this is vital economic data that's released shortly after the month ends. The combination of importance and earliness makes for hefty market impacts. So it has the ability to have drastic moves in the market. And again, it's all about how far away from the forecast it is. I just showed you they're expecting a gain of about 250,000 jobs last month in this country. So that's good for our economy. But if it falls short of that, we'll see the US dollar get weaker. If it far exceeds that number, we'll see the US dollar get stronger. Job creation is an important leading indicator of consumer spending, which accounts for a majority of overall economic activity. So you see how it all links together? Every statistic has an impact on everything else, which has an impact on our economy, which has an impact on the central bank, which can affect your pocketbook every single day, whether you understand it or not. Now, the unemployment rate. Well, that's the percentage of the total workforce that is unemployed and actively seeking employment during the previous month. Remember, it was 5.5%. Although it's generally viewed as a lagging indicator, the number of unemployed people is an important signal of overall economic health because consumer spending is highly correlated with labor market conditions. So that's saying that, hey, people have to be spending money so corporations can be making money so they can hire more people. It's all linked together, gang. You have to understand this stuff and be able to apply it not only as a trader, but to your everyday budget in life. Unemployment is also a major consideration for those steering the country's monetary policy. And that's all about the Federal Reserve. Now, last week we talked in detail about the Federal Reserve and how powerful they are. If you don't know who the Federal Reserve is or don't understand what they do, we're not going to discuss it tonight. I'll discuss it again in future webinars, but oh my goodness, you have to be fully invested in knowing who the Federal Reserve is, because they have their foot on the gas pedal or the brake of our economy. They have a huge amount of autonomy, and they are not the government. They are a private entity. You need to understand that as well. So there's lots of things you need to understand about the Federal Reserve that you really need to be well educated. All right. Now, so the impact. Investors pay so much attention to jobs because improvement in the labor market has led Federal Reserve policymakers to say they're planning to raise interest rates. Oh boy, that's a huge statement. Our federal chairperson, Janet Yellen, along with central bank officials Jeffrey Lacker, Dennis Lockhart, Esther George, Loretta Mester, have all spoken in favor of higher borrowing costs in the past week, with some supportive of a move as soon as June. So higher borrowing costs. So yeah, the Federal Reserve basically controls how much you're paying for the cost of money. So if you're buying a house with a mortgage, or buying a new car with a car loan, or using your credit cards, or paying off a student loan, anything and everything that has an interest rate all ties back in to what the Federal Reserve is doing. Now, there's not consensus, though, in the Federal Reserve. For example, Charles Evans, president of the Federal Bank of Chicago, said in March, just last month, he doesn't see any reason to rush the raising rates. So you have people saying one thing and other people saying other things when it comes to the Federal Reserve. But knowing how to interpret it and how to understand it can also lead to big moves in the market. Huge. So, Morgan Stanley, big investment bank, they show the central bank being the Federal Reserve, will increase its benchmark target for overnight loans from near zero in about 7.5 months. So they still think that the Federal Reserve won't act until towards the end of 2015, is what they're saying there. So you see, if the big boys like Morgan Stanley and Credit Suisse and American Express, all those big, huge central banks, gang, they all watch the Federal Reserve like a hawk, because they know as the Federal Reserve goes, so does the U.S. economy. Huge amount of power. You know, people get all crazy about presidential elections and congressional elections, and you should follow politics. But so few people understand that the Federal Reserve has all the power in the world when it comes to our economy. They're the ones you need to be watching. All righty. I think that was it. Yep. That's what I wanted to cover tonight. Oh, we went a little over, actually. I had to keep these around half an hour or so. So hopefully tomorrow morning, you will have the time where you are. Again, this is going to be 5:30 a.m. Pacific time. So plan your calendar accordingly, or even if you come in later in the day, come into Forex Factory, see what the actual numbers are, and you can then look up on your charts up here. They give you a free chart on Forex Factory, and you can see how much it affected the trading for the day. And if you have any questions about that, or how to read it, or how to understand it, feel free to give me a call here in the office here. You can reach me on this number here, and I'll be glad to answer your question. If I don't answer you right away, it'll be because I'm with a student, but I'll get back to you on my next break. Okay? So, hopefully you learned something tonight. Pay attention, gang. It's so important that you start understanding it, educating yourself, and really getting a good, solid feel for all the things that are happening on a daily basis that affect you. Crucially important stuff. I can't overstate it. I really can't. We want to help you. We want to help you bolster your education so you understand this. We want to help you work as hard as you can to build you into that consistent and sustainable trader. That's our goal. We have our promise and our pledge that we will work with you as hard as possible. We will work hard as you want to work on this to build you into that kind of trader that can build you into a profitable trader. All right. So thank you for your time this evening. We know you have many other things you could be doing, so hopefully you learned something tonight. I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar here, but I'll stay on for another 5 minutes or so. If you want to have some questions, type them in. And I'll turn my mic off here, but I'll come back in about 4 to 5 minutes. And if you have any questions, I'll answer them then. So feel free to type them in. Otherwise, that is it for tonight, and we will see you next Tuesday. Have a great evening and a great weekend. Bye-bye now. All righty. I don't see any more questions, so we'll end the webinar then. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.